This is Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
It's hour number 3 of Cashing Out right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Great to be joined by this man on the Progressive Guest Line as we've got Nick Giffen aboard. He does a tremendous job over at Action Network. He's one of their main predictive analysts over there, and he does a great job on the auto racing front, does a great job on the college basketball front as well. And Nick, always great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Greg. It's, been an interesting kind of chalky tournament, but it's been pretty fun. Now we've got all the heavy hitters facing each other.
No question about it. And has there been really a lot of surprises for you in the NCAA tournament? Because I personally thought coming in that it was going to be a very chalky tournament, but even I thought we were going to get like a little bit more of like those 12/5, 11/6 upsets, and even that just has not come through here in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think there was a stat going around that teams that were 6-point or more favorites are 30-2 as of up to today's games. And so, I think just after today, that's continued to trend on with both one seeds advancing to the Final Four. And now tomorrow, we have a 1 versus 2 and a 1 versus 2. So, it's a very chalky tournament. We didn't get as many of the upsets, but it's going to be, like I said, some very competitive games with, some of the best teams in the nation left.
Yep, no question about it. And how about if we do dive in first things first on a game that I know that you're very much honed in on. It is the Auburn matchup against Michigan State. Michigan State currently a 5-point underdog. That total is 148. How do you take a look at this matchup between the two? Because I do think that it's interesting, the contrast with Michigan State being a team that really doesn't shoot it well from three-point range, but they do a great job on the glass, and an Auburn team that has been doing a very good job with regards to pretty much everything across the board, but felt like coming into the NCAA tournament, they might have perhaps been playing their worst basketball of the season.
Yeah, Auburn definitely looked like, they were struggling in the first half. But then again, so was Michigan State struggling in the first half against Ole Miss there. I do think it's interesting for Michigan State. They come off a game against Ole Miss, a team that, allows you to shoot from outside, allows a very high assist rate, to facing an Auburn team that absolutely has just a massively strong shooting defense, 11th best effective field goal percentage defense in the nation. And they force teams to shoot inside where, they got Janai Broome among others there to kind of clean up the inside. So very contrasting styles between Michigan State's previous opponent and now their opponent in Auburn.
Yep, I think that is going to be a lot of fun to take a look at. And do you think that Michigan State has a shot to be able to pull off the upset? Because personally, I do think that Auburn is going to be able to make the Final Four. But I look at the side with a +5. I wouldn't want to go any further down than a +5, but I'd be willing to take +5 personally with Michigan State.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've seen it with Auburn. They've kind of struggled all tournament just in terms of being able to close teams out. Alabama State even hung around in the first half. Creighton was a tough game. Michigan, tough game. Auburn trailing by a good chunk there early on against Michigan. But Michigan State has also been a second half team. So I think the team that actually wins the first half battle has a good chance of winning this game. So I think, Michigan State not necessarily being a great first half team. I probably, like you said, I don't want to go into the 4 range if I'm going to back Michigan State. I think +5 might be fine. But if I get inside of +4.5, it's probably a no play for me until you get to around 3.5. And then I'd be on Auburn's side here.
Yep, and as we know, 3.5 numbers, very critical in Michigan State games. We saw that on display, about 48 or so hours ago. So that's certainly something to decipher. And then with regards to the other game that we're going to be seeing, because you mentioned it, the lone non-1 seed that you have going to the Final Four is Tennessee. Currently, most places are a 3-point underdog. I saw briefly a 2.5 over there at DraftKings as well. Totals hovering right around 123.5, 124. How do you take a look at this game? One where the bookmakers think that it's going to be extremely low scoring, but you do have plenty of firepower in terms of the individual scorers on both sides.
Yeah, this is, two of the top 4 defenses in the nation. Houston ranking number 1 in defensive efficiency and Tennessee number 3. So, it's just going to be a very strong defensive battle. Also, 2 very slow-paced teams. So we're going to see probably a sub-60 possession game here. 2 great defenses. So it should be low scoring. But then again, right, we also have 2 very good offenses, top 17, top 20 offensive efficiencies. But I do think defense wins out in the end of the day. So I think this 123.5 total, probably a fair line. And this game is going to be very close. And, what Tennessee has going for it here is they take a lot of threes. They force their opponents into a lot of threes. And similarly, Houston forces their opponent to shoot a lot of threes. And when you have a low possession game with a lot of threes, that induces a lot of variance, and it makes it harder for Houston to realize their efficiency edge. So I kind of like, maybe backing Tennessee at plus 3.5, something like that.
Yep, and I do think that it's interesting to take a look at this game as well from the individual players, because I've pointed out on Houston, you got L.J. Cryer along with Emmanuel Sharp, two guys that really drain it from three-point range, or top two scorers. And then on the flip side, Chaz Lanier along with Zakai Ziegler have been very good in the backcourt as well. Any of these props standing out to you? Because you mentioned it. It is very high variance, and I do think that it makes it a little bit more difficult to gauge these props, because I could see a scenario where Chaz Lanier goes off for like 25-plus points, but I could also see a scenario where he doesn't even get to 10.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting spot because, my projections are showing a lot of undervalue on Tennessee players simply because their implied team total is only 60 points. And if you look at the last time they scored less than 60 points, that was more than 2 months ago against Auburn. So in those 17 games since, Tennessee has been averaging 74.2 points per game. Now they're going down to an implied total of 60. So players are going to be scoring a lot less. Now, what I've noticed is Lanier and Ziegler, the two guys you really referenced, their usage has gone up. And that's come at the expense of a guy I'm going to be fading in points, and that's Igor Milicic for Tennessee here. He is, a very good player. He actually was at my University of Virginia Cavaliers to start his career, but his playing time has taken a hit in both the SEC and NCAA tournaments. He's down from 62.5% minutes played on the year to just over 50% of minutes played in these two tourneys combined. And his usage does go down versus, top 50, top 100 teams. He's taking just below 19% of his team's shots against these teams compared to just over 20% against all other teams, the lesser opponents there. So I do think this gets a little more concentrated to Ziegler and Lanier. And with that lower implied team total, there's just going to be fewer points all around. So I'm going to take Igor Milicic under 7.5 points.
I think that that's a great way of looking at it, and certainly what I think is going to be of intrigue with regards to total as well. Do you get a differential of, shall we say, 5 points, 6 points, 7 points? Because that's where I think that this under is in a little bit of trouble, because if you get those late game fouls, you could have a perfectly mapped out under, and then it goes over as a result. How do you take a look at that aspect of things? Because I think that that's the most tricky part of this game, because if either team is sort of in that scenario, that could lead to such a low total going over just because of the virtue of the way that the game plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an interesting cat and mouse game because it depends on which team. In terms of Milicic's player prop, right? So it could push the total over, but where are those points going to come from when you're looking at player props? Well, if Tennessee is leading, they're going to want to get the ball in the hands of Zakai Ziegler, right? They're going to want to get the ball in Mashak's hands because those are their best free throw shooters, maybe even Jordan Gainey. And then Lanier and Milicic have been just a slight tier down from those players. But of course, if you're Houston, you're trying to funnel the ball to those players. So I can't really say one way or the other whether that would favor a guy like Ziegler or favor some of these lesser guys in terms of expected free throw attempts in this scenario, Milicic, because now Houston's trying to force those guys to take the shots if they're in the lead. So, I do think it means the total could go over, but as far as the player props, it really doesn't tend to affect my handicap there too much.
And I think that that's a great way of looking at it, as we do have joining the show Nick Giffen. He does great work over at Action Network right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And if you want the sharp plays, go on over to sharpplays.com. They've been doing it since 2011. They've got trusted relationships with major sports books and sports insiders worldwide. You're able to get some free content from them over on the old Twitter/X, along with via email as well. And you're able to explore everything that they've got with their records, online logs, and so much more over at thesharpplays.com. And with the Sharp Plays, you're able to get everything that they've got with cutting AI betting analysis and even more selections and reports, giving you the edge that you need to win. That's over at sharpplays.com, as we do have Nick Giffen joining me right here on Cashing Out. And just with regards to the two teams that were able to advance to the Final Four as well, I want to touch a little bit there because I just right now look at Duke, and even though I filled out Florida as the national title team in my bracket, I feel like Florida would have a very tough time against Duke. I'm not sure how you take a look at things, but it's just hard for me on paper to say that Duke is anything other than the most dominant team, though I do think that if we do see that Houston versus Duke matchup, with that being played in the state of Texas, that could be the one place where I could see them being in a spot where they might slip up.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Duke is clearly the number one team in the nation. And I do think, if they face Houston, that could be tough because Houston will slow the game down and make that one a lot closer. But I look for Duke to make the finals regardless. And me personally, I have Auburn in my bracket. And the only reason I have Auburn is because I feel like of the 4 1 seeds, they were the one being picked maybe the lowest relative to the probability I had them winning it all. I have, Auburn and Houston going into the tournament, or I should say Auburn and Florida, a relative coin flip for each versus each other. I think given the games that have been played since, I certainly would favor Florida. But either of those teams, Florida or Auburn, if they end up facing Duke, I still would make Duke the favorite. It's just everybody's picking Duke in their bracket, so I wanted to go a little bit different.
I don't blame you there, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see what we get both on Sunday and for the rest of the tournament. And Nick, I know you're doing a great job of deciphering it all. Really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me anytime, and enjoy the rest of the tournament, everyone.
Absolutely. It has been a great tournament, and it's always great to be able to talk about it with Nick. And how about if coming up next, we do have ourselves a lot in terms of baseball and college basketball. We'll dive in on both fronts next, right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. It was great to be able to chat with our good friend Nick Giffen over at Action Network in the last segment, taking a look at all that we've got here in the Elite Eight, and we'll dive in on that a little bit more here in a second. First things first, something very important to do. I have to give a big thank you to everyone behind the scenes that make these shows possible here at VSiN. They are the best team in the business because they do such a good job with all their work and making all these shows happen. I need to do a good job with my picks, as you've got Hunton, my producer. He does a great job night in and night out setting me up for success, along with Johnny, our man on site, who does a great job making sure that we always stay online, which that is not an easy task when you're working with myself, and yet somehow, some way, they both do an incredible job. The most difficult task, I would say, here at the network, though, is making myself look halfway presentable in a moving picture / video format. Jaron does a tremendous job as our technical director, and everything that you see on the screen with the odds, the line moves, what have you, he, along with Al, they are right on top of it, so they do a tremendous job on that front. And we're on SiriusXM channel 158, and you're able to catch everything that we do here at the network in podcast form as well. So if you miss out on anything live, go to vsin.com/podcast, or wherever you find your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, list goes on and on. Search for the VSiN Best Bets feed. You're able to find all those hours there. And Chris, he always does a great job making everything sound all nice, crisp, and clean. So big thanks to them behind the scenes. They are truly the best. And how about if we take a look at some of the best games that we're going to be seeing all year long, because we do have a pair of E-League 8 games that are going to be happening on this Saturday, or on this Sunday, as on Saturday we did see ourselves 2 1 seeds that advance to the Final Four. And personally, I think that we're going to get 2 1 seeds that survive and advance and win again, but I have one covering and I have one not covering. And right now, with the one that I do have covering, it's Houston. Right now, in a lot of spots here, find them as a 3-point favorite. I've been seeing a few 2.5 starting to pop up as well. Mainly at DraftKings is where I'm seeing that 2.5 if you like Houston. And again, you go back to what we saw a few nights ago in the Michigan State versus Ole Miss game. Talking to someone about the significance of getting a -2.5 versus a -3, or a -3 versus a -3.5, yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about there. And this total's starting to tick up. This is one where when I did my VSiN write-up, and I did write both of these games up, they're up on the website over at VSiN.com, this total was more around 123, 123.5. It's now in a lot of places at a 124. I'm starting to see a 125 out there as well, and I wouldn't want to go past a 125 over. And always do try to be able to get the best of the number. It's been coming through very, very much here in the NCAA tournament, and I do think that with Houston, they just find a way to be able to get it done. Having two guys like LJ Cryer, Emmanuel Sharp, they're able to shoot north of 42% from three. That both shoot north of 87% at the free throw line is big. Now, this game is being played in Lucas Oil Stadium, so the shooting from the outside, it's going to be down for both of these teams. You'd have to figure the depth perception, that's a little bit rough. Now, it is game number 2, so they're used to it just a little bit more than in game number 1. So I do think that edge that you do find with the, shall we say, unfamiliarity, I think that goes away just a little bit, but it's still certainly there, in my opinion, especially with them playing game number 2 in the last 3 days, and neither of these teams being super duper up tempo, I think is a little bit of an elixir to that as well, because you've got Tennessee and Houston who are both outside the top 315 in terms of total possessions per game, Houston being the slower of the two teams, but with Houston, they do a nice job being able to generate second and third opportunities. I think that Houston going to be able to win that battle on the glass, as I do like what Igor Milicic, Felix Opara bring to the table for Tennessee. They're able to combine for north of 13 rebounds per game, but then you've got Joseph Tugler, Juwan Roberts, who combine for 12 boards per game. These guys do a nice job being able to generate those second and third chances, and I just keep going back to it. Milou Suzan, over the last 20 games for Houston, is averaging 14.5 points per game, 4.3 assists, and 1.7 turnovers per game on 51.9% three-point shooting. Just absolutely wild what we've seen out of him, even with having Chaz Lanier giving you 18 points on 40% three-point shooting. Zakai Ziegler, 7.5 assists per game. I do think that Houston does just enough to be able to get the job done. That big-time free throw shooting that you've got out of the top guys, I think is going to be paramount in getting the cover as well. So I'm willing to lay the number here with Houston, and with regards to the total, I'm going to be in on that over as well. Again, we're starting to see this tick up to a 124, 124.5. Would still be willing to take a shot on the over, but do everything possible to be able to get the best of the number, and we want to try to help you guys be able to get the best that we can here in March as well into April, because here at VSiN we cover all the sports. We're getting set for what is going to be happening in terms of the hockey playoffs. We've got you guys covered obviously with the rest of March Madness, but baseball season is starting up as well, so we've got you guys on that front. We're going to have our Masters betting guide out within the next few days as well. I know that folks are hard at work on that front as well, and they always do a tremendous job there, because I personally am not too much of a golf handicapper, but that's why we are a team here at VSiN, and you get all the daily best bet emails from our VSiN shows and guests. You get all these tremendous betting guides. You get the splits over at Circa along with DraftKings as well. When you sign up for a VSiN Pro subscription, you're able to do so for as low as $9.99 over at VSiN.com/subscribe. That is VSIN.com/subscribe, as it is cashing out with myself, Greg Oops Peterson, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And how about if we dive in on that other game? We've got Auburn versus Michigan State. This is going to be happening from the lovely state of Georgia. And with Auburn, they are a 5-point favorite in a lot of spots, seeing some 4.5s out there as well. Total on this game, it is 147.5 to a 148. And with Auburn, I did set them as a 4.5 point favorite. At the 5, I'd be willing to take a shot on Michigan State. Personally, in pocket, I've got a 5.5. So, again, always try to be able to get the best of the number. And I personally just don't know if we get really past a 5. I could see this going back to a little bit more of 5s and the 4.5s drying up. I don't know if we get past a 5, though. I do think that with Michigan State, they do find a way to hold in there. And I certainly do think that there is credence in Tom Izzo in March being able to get the job done. It was laid out by, I believe that it was Nick Giffen. It might have been our previous guest that was mentioning this as well. But for Tom Izzo, in the 10 Elite 8 games that he has partaken in, his teams are 9-1 straight up. And I mean, that's a long story track record. Now, as we know, Bruce Pearl, he has been a rock solid coach in March as well. You're able to go all the way back to when he was over at UW Milwaukee back in like 2005. Like, this guy gets the job done time and time again. These are two of the better coaches they're going to find in all of college basketball. But what I think is able to keep Michigan State lively in this game is just the way that they D up and the way that they do the little things well. By that, I mean number 3 in the country in terms of overall rebound percentage. And even though they don't necessarily have the top rebounder in this game, because that'd be one Mr. Gianni Broom. He's been doing a nice job cleaning up north of 18 points, north of 10.5 rebounds per game. You do have someone that I like in Jackson Kaler, who's able to give you about 8.5 or so rebounds per game. Additionally, you've been able to get someone like the 7-footer in Simon Zapala, due to a rock-solid job down low, also gives you a block per game, and Jeremiah Fears, the way that he dishes out the ball, north of 5 assists and fewer than 2 turnovers per game, I think it's tremendous. Flip side for Auburn, they're not a team that's going to generate a lot of turnovers, but they do a nice job of taking care of the ball themselves. They only turn the ball over about 9.5 times per game. You've got 4 separate guys, Taj Pettiford, Denver Jones, Chad Baker-Mazara, Miles Kelly, that all give between 11 to 12.5 points per contest. They all shoot at least 37.5% from 3. They all shoot at least 80% at the free throw line, and 3 of the 4 shoot at least 87% at the free throw line. So that's going to be a very difficult matchup for Michigan State, but the way that Jace Richardson has been able to step up for this team, shooting north of 40% from three-point range all season long, 15-plus points in 6 out of the last 7 games, I think it's going to be just enough for them to remain lively. I do think that this Michigan State bunch, they are certainly up against it, but I think that Tom Izzo is going to do just enough for his team to hold in there. Like I said, I wouldn't want to take anything less than 5 here with Michigan State, but I'm willing to take the 5, and with regards to this total, I'm going to be in on this total under as well. I did set my total 146.5. Keep in mind, Auburn, in their last 5 games, has stayed all the way back to the SEC tournament. They have given up 70 points or fewer in every one of them, so it does feel like the defensive effort has been pretty rock solid there as well. So we do have ourselves a lot of fun, and right now we are talking about Auburn versus Michigan State, and unfortunately I don't believe that we've got the Detroit Tigers in action, because I was going to go and try to do like the Michigan theme sort of thing there, but you know what? We do have ourselves some great baseball action that's going to be happening here on this Sunday. Do want to get you some of those as well. We need to have all day and all night sweats. We hit upon a few of the baseball games in hour number 2, so let's take a look at a few of the games that we have yet to hit, and this is going to be one of the earliest ones of the day, as we've got ourselves the Milwaukee Brewers and the New York Yankees, with Marcus Stroman going for the Yankees and Aaron Zavalli on the bump for the Milwaukee Brewers, and the Brewers are about a plus 120 to a plus 125 dog. I think between minus 132 to minus 142 is that number on the Yankees, with a total of 8.5, and I feel like a moron for taking the under on Saturday between the Brewers and the New York Yankees, and baseball will do that to you. Like, I also took the under in the Angels versus the White Sox game. That was a total of 8, so the total, it was about 8 times too high, because he had a total of 8, the only 1 run was scored, and then the total was over tripled what the closing total was in terms of that Brewers versus Yankees game. So you get some hairbraininess there, but that said, I do think that you're going to get a much better effort out of both of these pitchers. Marcus Stroman had a little bit of a rough spring, but I think that he's going to be able to bounce back here. Does a nice job being able to induce a lot of ground balls. I'm just not necessarily fully sold on this Brewers offense as well. Recognize that they were solid last season, but I don't necessarily think that they're going to be able to duplicate that this season. For the Yankees, I think that things are going to be very much, shall we say, a little bit more tepid in terms of the offense after the 21-run outburst that we saw on Saturday as well. So I'm looking under, and I'm looking at the Yankees, and we'll have a little bit more baseball on the flip side here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
And we're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, and we've got ourselves a lot to be taking a look at for this Sunday. It really is about as close to a sports equinox as you get without having football involved, and you actually do have some XFL football that is going on, so I guess there's that aspect of things. Personally, I can't really put that in the same regard as the NFL, but you do have football, so there's that aspect of things. You get yourself some football, you've got baseball, obviously NBA, NHL going on, the college basketball Elite 8 as well, so it's a lot of good, clean family fun to be had right there. And how about if we do have some good, clean family fun on the ball diamond, taking a look at these games and try to be able to find you guys some winners out here, as we've got ourselves an interesting spot here. I'm not too familiar with doing this after what happened last year, but I'm actually going to be doing this. I'm going to be the schmuck that bets on, gasp, the Chicago White Sox. This is 963 and 964 on the card, as you've got Davis Martin, who's going for the Southsiders, and Jack Conowitz is on the bump for the LA Angels. With the Angels, you're going to be finding them as a favorite of anywhere between minus 130 to a minus 135, plus 114 to plus 123. That number on the White Sox with a total in most places of an 8.5. I'm seeing 1 or 2 straight 8s out there as well, and I certainly do like this total under. I'm not necessarily a fan of Jack Conowitz, but these offenses are not good. These two teams were in the bottom 3 in the big leagues with regards to runs per game last season, with the White Sox dead stinking last. So we'll say Andrew Benintendi is a guy that I actually do like for this bunch. With Andrew Benintendi, he was able to give you a little bit of power towards back half of the season last year. And as we know, when he was with the Boston Red Sox, he had some signs of brilliance. He also had some very big inconsistencies as well. But there were times where he was able to give a relatively rock-solid effort. You got now Yoan Moncada, who's with the LA Angels. He comes over from the Chicago White Sox. And Mike Trout, to this point, has not looked like himself this far this season. I don't know if we're ever going to see vintage Mike Trout with all the injuries that he has been suffering through, but you do have Taylor Ward, who's been able to do a nice job, being able to give the team a little bit of life. Luis Renifo is a guy that's able to reach base for you as well. And for the Chicago White Sox, Luis Robert is another one of those guys that I don't know if we're ever going to see peak Luis Robert again. He had a miserable season last year, and it does feel like when you do have some of these guys that are on just bad teams, that I wish I could call it anything else, but sometimes you just absorb the stink, for lack of a better term. Like, you might have a really good player, but when you're dealing with a team like the Chicago White Sox that is just not good, to say the least, man, that makes things a little bit difficult. And you know that things are not necessarily great for you when your 5-hole hitter is Nick Matone. So there's that. They're going to be relying upon guys like Lennon Sosa and company to be able to get the job done, so I'm in on the under. But that said, I actually do like the Chicago White Sox here because Jack Conowitz had one of the lowest strikeouts per 9 rates I've ever seen in my life last year. He had about 3.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. Like, man, he pitches to a lot of contact. Good news is, with pitching to that much contact, he's not going to give out a lot of walks, but man, he's really not developing a lot of swings and misses. There's not a lot of deception there. Even in spring training this year, there wasn't a ton. And for Davis Martin, he did have an 0-5 record last year, but if you look past the record itself, he did some things well. He did walk a few too many guys, but kept the ball in the yard, giving up less than a home run per 9 innings. He's able to give you north of 8 strikeouts per 9, and he was actually a pretty solid pitcher in 2022. Missed all 2023 with major surgery and injury. Kid from Texas Tech. I do think that there's a little bit of upside there with him. And for the LA Angels, they did have to burn up 2 of their massive bullpen pieces yesterday. Ben Joyce, Kenley Jansen, they both threw 19 pitches on Saturday. So that means that these guys are a little bit less likely to be going in this spot. And I mean, those are really your main guys, because for the Angels, they don't have the world's worst bullpen. You've got likes of a Ryan Zephyrian, Brock Burke, who I call him Brock and Roll Burke. He's been able to do a solid job ever since coming on over to the Angels. He was on the Texas Rangers for quite a bit of time, but other than that, you don't necessarily have a ton. Flip side for the Chicago White Sox, they did revamp things, bringing in someone like a Bryce Wilson, and I do feel like the bullpen is going to be a little bit better this season, and I do think that for the Angels, they do have a nice pitching advantage here, so I do like them being able to get a plus number, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the Southsiders on the money line. And with regards to total, again, I just don't know. It's going to be developing a lot of offense here. I'm going to be in on that total under as well. And then we've got ourselves a fun one out there in the lovely state of Florida. As you've got from George Steinbrenner Stadium, which is just very strange to say, the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Colorado Rockies, as it is Mr. Ryan Feltner who's going to be on the bump for the Rockies, and Taj Jean-Claude Milton Bradley goes for the Rays. And right now the total is 8.5, shaded down to the under. And with the Rays, you're going to be laying about a minus 190 with them, fighting about plus 160, plus 170 in terms of that plus number on the Rockies. And if you're looking to lay a run line with the Rays, you're going to be finding that at a plus 110. And I did set my total at 7.7. I do like this total under because you have a Rockies team that they just can never hit when they're away from home. This Rockies organization in general, just with regards to the elevation changes, which you're going through a little bit less of right now. You're going to be going through that much more here in the next few weeks. But, I mean, just with those elevation changes in general, it does really throw the team into a little bit of a tizzy, for lack of a better term, and it does suppress their offense. And with the Rockies, even when they're away from home and they're not dealing with those elevation changes, who really strikes fear in you? Ryan McMahon is a guy that had 20 home runs last season. Ezekiel Tovar was okay at the plate. Chris Bryant has been a big, giant waste of money. Like, man, that entire catcher spot with like Hunter Goodman out there, not a lot. Not a lot to say the least, and for the Tampa Bay Rays, they're pretty allergic to offense themselves. Outside the top 20 with regards to run creation from last year, and now you lose a few guys that were so big for that team. Like, they traded away Isaac Paredes midseason last year, so you don't have the services of him. They trade for Christopher Morel, who hit right around the Mendoza line of 200 last season. Has a little bit of power, but doesn't really reach Braves. Brandon Lau, he looked very promising like 5 or so years ago. It's just never come to the forefront from him. I like what I'm seeing out of Junior Caminero. I think that there's a little bit of upside there. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, you could always bank on that bullpen. They always just have a whole bunch of guys like Mike Montgomery. They trade away Colin Boucher in the offseason, and go figure, Colin Boucher now, he is not pitching as well in his next location. You find that a lot with the Tampa Bay Rays. They very much know when to cut bait with a lot of these guys, but Pierre Fairbanks and company and that bullpen is rock solid. And for the Rockies, man, they are always in the bottom 3 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. I think Victor Vodnik was like the lone guy last year that had a sub-4 ERA. Anel Shavili got used up yesterday as well, so that's a little bit less than tremendous. And with this Tampa Bay Rays team, Tosh Bradley, really good with his swing and miss stuff, 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings in his 2 years that he's been up at the big league level. That said, a guy that does give up a little bit too much of the deep ball, but who on the Rockies is going to be able to hit that deep ball? And from everything I've deciphered thus far with the Rays Stadium, certainly it's a little bit more, shall we say, curtailed to hitters than you're going to find with the old Trop, but it's pretty much a league average ballpark at this point. Now, when it gets into the summer months and when it gets super duper humid, I think the balls might be really flying out there in Tampa Bay. But as of right now, with these March, April temperatures, I think that's pretty much a league average ballpark as of right now. So I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the under. And with the Rays, I do think that Tosh Bradley is going to be rock solid, and I just don't know where the offense is coming from with the Colorado Rockies, so I'm going to take a shot on the run line. And additionally with the Rockies, Ryan Feltner, not a bad pitcher, 4.15 fielding independent last year, was really able to work on the walk, so like the upside there, so do like that under, and I do like the run line of the Tampa Bay Rays. And what else I love is never having to worry about transaction fees or anything like that, because Edge Boost, it's the first ever bank account that is built for bettors, ensuring that all gambling transactions, they get approved 100% of the time. You're able to earn cashback rewards as you use Edge Boost as well. And when you go to edgeboost.bet and utilize promo code of CASH, CASH, you're able to get your first deposit of $25 match dollar for dollar. That's over at edgeboost.bet, as it is cashing out with myself, Greg Peterson, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And how about if we do take a look at this game between the Minnesota Twins and the St. Louis Cardinals? Andre 3000 Palante is going to be on the bump for St. Louis, and Bailey Ober goes for Minnesota. Minnesota right now about a -115 to a -125 favorite. That neighborhood of even money to +108 is the number on the St. Louis Cardinals. Most places have a total of 8. Right now, I'm seeing pretty much all of it juiced to the over, and with that, I am going to be willing to take a shot here with regards to the under, as I did set my total a little bit sub 8 here, as I do think that you're going to be able to get a relatively good performance out of both of these guys. But with the Minnesota Twins, if you can get them more around about a -115 or so, which I'm seeing at a few places, I'm going to be willing to lay with Minnesota. With Minnesota, it's a squad that's right now dealing with injuries once again. Royce Lewis, he's back on the injured list, and you just wish that the Minnesota Twins could stay healthy. Right now, Byron Buxton is in the fold. Who knows when he's going to be getting injured once again. Brooks Lee is back on the injured list. Like, man, it has been, shall we say, rough for them, to say the least. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, you've got a guy in Nolan Arenado that they really need to be able to step up this season. After last year, it was just not his best effort. And for Andre Palante, just not a guy that I've ever been too bullish on. He very much pitches to a lot of contact. He gives up north of 3 walks per 9 innings, while his home runs per 9 rate is low. Everything else is just very underwhelming. This St. Louis Cardinals team has a pretty solid bullpen, but I do like the fact that the Twins bring back Danny Colum, albeit they did utilize quite a few of their relievers yesterday. But that said, Bailey Ober is a guy that's able to give you north of 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, really doesn't give out a lot of walks. Wouldn't want to go past a -115, but going to be willing to lay that -115 that I'm seeing right now on the Minnesota Twins. And to wrap up the show, we'll give you guys my Elite 8 bets, and we're going to take a look at a little bit more baseball for Sunday as well. That's up next, right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
It is the final segment of the night right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. If you're listening live to Cashing Out, well, you're going to be getting a replay of this fine program. Meanwhile, if you're listening to the replay of Cashing Out, coming up, you're going to be getting the VSiN Morning Line. That is over at 7 o'clock a.m. Pacific Time, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. Tim Murray and company always do a rock-solid job there. And then we're going to get you live bets Sunday along with everything else that we've got here at the network, as well as I know that we've got ourselves a jam-packed day, the Elite Eight. It is going to be coming up, Ready, Set, Bet, along with Matt Brown and Matt Somich. They do a tremendous job too, so now my job, it is very clear. We have to get you guys on over to everything that we're going to be getting in the AM with the VSiN Morning Line safely, hopefully with a little bit more money in pocket. And we'll be taking a look at a wide variety of things. We've got ourselves just 2 games of college basketball, albeit very big games, but 2 games of college basketball. So I have to take a look at a little bit of what we're going to be getting on the baseball front as well. And how about if we do start out with those 2 Elite Eight games, as we do have ourselves, first things first, the Auburn versus Michigan State game. And Michigan State, they're currently find themselves as 4.5 to 5-point underdogs. Total is 148. And again, I just take a look at this Michigan State team. I cannot go up against Tom Izzo in March with the way that he has been so successful in this round of the NCAA tournament. 9-1 straight up, and with Michigan State, I do believe that the defense is going to do just enough to be able to keep them lively in this game. They do a really nice job in terms of being able to win the rebound battle, 3rd in the country in terms of rebound percentage, albeit it was not necessarily where you wanted it to be in their game against Ole Miss, but I think that they're going to have a little bit of bounce back here. And speaking of not where you want it to be, Auburn has had some wobbliness over the last few weeks. Like, even if you take a look at the game that we saw a few nights ago against Michigan, they got down in that game by like 8 or 9 points with 12 minutes remaining. They go on a massive bonsai charge from there, and man, Michigan, they really blew that one, to say the least. That was a little bit less than tremendous, but you know what? I do think that for this Auburn team, they are going to be able to have quite a bit of success in the backcourt. You've got a quartet of different guys that give you between 11 and 12.5 points per contest. Chad Baker, Mazzara, Denver Jones, Miles Kelly, Taj Pettiford. All these guys are able to shoot at least 37.5% from 3. They all shoot at least 80% at the free throw line as well. So good versatility, good range there. And additionally, you do have a guy in Gene Broom who obviously is doing a very good job of cleaning up. He's been able to give this team well north of 10 rebounds per game. But when you do have someone like a Cohen Carr who's able to be very versatile for this Michigan State team, when you do have these guys are able to do a nice job of just being able to mix and match, and Jackson Kaler has been able to give the team 7.5 rebounds per game, I do think that that's going to be able to keep this Michigan State team relatively lively in this game. I do think that additionally, Jace Richardson and the way that he's been able to shoot well north of 40% from 3-point shots is going to be just enough for them to be able to have the effort needed to be able to hold in this game against a very, very good Auburn team that, even though they haven't been playing their best recently, they still do have one of the most well-rounded units in all of college basketball. They do a nice job in terms of being able to protect the ball. And additionally, for Auburn, 70 points or fewer allowed in each of their last 5 games. So landed on the under in this spot, and I'm going to be landing on those points with Michigan State as well. And then in the other game, going to be willing to take a shot on the favorite with Houston. Mostly seeing them as a 3-point favorite. Seeing 1 or 2 straight 2.5s out there as well. And the total is starting to tick up. When I started this show, this was at a 123.5. Now it's getting up to a 124, 124.5. And I am in on the over. I wouldn't want to be really going past a 125. So you want to grab it now rather than a little bit later on. But I do think that even though these are 2 low-tempo teams, these are 2 teams that are well outside the top 300 in terms of total possessions per game. In the case of Houston, they're a bottom 15 team in terms of total possessions per game, that they are going to be able to still supply some offense. You've got a pair of guards on both sides. They're 2 very, very good scorers. And as a matter of fact, for Houston, you've got 3, because Milo Suzan, over the last 20 games for the team, shooting 51.9% from 3-point range in that time span, 4.3 assists, along with about 14.3 points per contest. He pairs up very well with LJ Cryer, Emmanuel Sharp. Both of these guys shooting north of 42% from 3, north of 87% at the charity stripe as well. So I absolutely love what they bring to the table. And then when you take a look at what you're going to be able to get on the other side, I do think that for Tennessee, they're going to be able to remain lively. When you've got a guy in Zakai Ziegler who's able to give you 7.5 assists per game, all that experience that he's got in the backcourt, that is absolutely massive. And additionally, Chaz Lanier, who's one of the better spot-up shooters that you're going to find in all of college basketball. He has been able to shoot north of 40% from three. He has been supplying this team with north of 18 points per game, that they're going to be able to do just enough with regards to their part for the over. And this is something else I take a look at with regards to this low total as well. If you do have a game where, say, Tennessee or Houston is down 6 points, 7 points with a minute remaining, that means fouls, and that does really help you out with regards to the total. And I think that that's a big X factor to be taking a look at. So it is one of these cases where I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the over. And with Houston, I think that Joseph Tugler, Juwan Roberts, they do just enough against Felix Opara, Igor Milicic to be able to win that battle down low. So I'm willing to lay the number here with Houston, and I'm going to be in on this total over as well. And these best bets, they are brought to you by GBank, which is the official bank of VSiN. It's a little bit easier to be able to give out a few bets with regards to these college basketball games when you don't have 150 games and you got two instead. And GBank, they certainly are upping the ante, as they are able to give you a $750 bonus if you're a new member by doing two things. You're able to earn a $250 bonus by making $1,000 in eligible purchases within your first 90 days of opening an account, and then you get an additional $500 when you spend $50,000 on gaming and sports app loads within the first 30 days of opening an account. That gives you the potential of a $750 bonus with both of those steps. Apply now at vsin.com/gbank. That is vsin.com/gbank. This is subject to credit approval, and terms and conditions, they do apply. Now let's take a look at a little bit of what we're going to be getting on the baseball front for this Sunday, as well as we've got ourselves 13 games. You're not going to be getting the full allotment of games. That'll be coming next week, the week after. You get a little bit of a funky schedule with the first week of the season, but that said, I do like myself quite a few unders on Sunday. I know that it's been a little bit of an overwhelming start to the MLB season, but you've got a few offenses I think that you can find some value in targeting and just going against. Like I mentioned this with the Miami Marlins. I looked at their roster on Friday and the starting nine that they had in terms of their position players. A career 45 home runs between those 9 guys. You've got Max Meyer going for the Miami Marlins, who I know is a relative unknown, but I think that he's got some relatively good stuff, even though his ERA is a career north of 5. I think that he's going to be able to do a rock-solid job, and they go up against the Pittsburgh Pirates and Andrew Heaney, which Andrew Heaney's big bugaboo has always been giving up the deep ball. He always gives you north of 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, always has some good wipeout stuff. Sometimes gets a little bit too happy with the walks, but he's been able to rein it in a little bit more in terms of command. I look at that 8 under, but I also do look at the Miami Marlins, a team that if you look at their fielding independent with their bullpen, was actually in the top 8 in the big leagues, albeit that was back when you had A.J. Puck and a few others in that bullpen that they traded away at the trade deadline / in the off season. But I do think that for the Miami Marlins, they do find a way to be able to get the job done in this one, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on them on the money line, and I'm going to be in on that total under as well. This is a game that I've yet to talk about, but I do like the run line here of the Philadelphia Phillies. This is going to be one of the early games of the day with Aaron Nola hoping to be super for the Philadelphia Phillies, and Mr. Mitchell Parker on the bump for the Washington Nationals. And for Parker, he was able to have himself a relatively nice rookie year. He had given up 3 earned runs or fewer in 10 out of his first 11 starts. Things toilet bowl for him in the second half of the season. Doesn't give up a ton of hard contact, but not a guy that's necessarily going to knock your socks off in terms of the overall strikeout stuff. He was getting about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and this is a Philadelphia Phillies team that's pretty nasty with regards to their lineup. Bryce Harper was able to go deep on opening day. Kyle Schwarber is doing a much better job of being able to move the line and get on base than he has in past seasons, so that helps you out. Bryson Stott is able to give you some relatively good production. I really like what I'm seeing up and down the boulevard with regards to Philadelphia Phillies. And for the Washington Nationals, power is a little bit better than it was last season. Last season, they were a bottom 5 team in terms of their overall home run power. Keibert Ruiz already has a pair of bombs as far this season. C.J. Abrams, hopefully he's not going up super duper late night / AM. He's a guy that should be able to give this team a little bit of a boost as well. But I do think that for Aaron Nola, even though he's had his issues on the road, he's going to be able to supply a relatively good start here, as he's a guy that for his career, well north of 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, has struggled a little bit away from home. His career ERA is about a full point higher when he is away from home rather than when he is at home. But I think that Mitchell Parker and that Nationals bullpen that is one of the most underwhelming in all of baseball, they certainly do give it up. So looking at the over, and I'm looking at that Philadelphia Phillies run line as well. And then in terms of Cubs versus the Arizona Diamondbacks, we got Eduardo Rodriguez going up against Matthew Boyd, and a total of 9, and I'm going to take that under as well. Did some a total at an 8.7, and right now with the Arizona Diamondbacks, find themselves as between minus 117 to minus 120 favorites, will be willing to lay it. Matthew Boyd, a little bit of a career renaissance last year with the Cleveland Guardians, but very small 8-game sample size for Eduardo Rodriguez. Has dealt with injuries over the last few seasons, but the Diamondbacks really revamped that bullpen. They are also the number 1 team in all of baseball dating back to the beginning of the 2024 campaign in terms of runs per game. So do like that under, and I do like the Diamondbacks. What else I love? The VSiN morning line going to be coming your way at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern, 7 o'clock a.m. Pacific. And then you've got Ready, Set, Bet, Mike Somich, along with Matt Brown. They do a tremendous job. That starts at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, and we've got ourselves a great day of sports right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.